Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I'm bringing you around from the Sheffield League Challenge that happened in October 2015. We're in the standard format, so that means all the sets from X and Y to Ancient Origins. Huge thank to Sheffield PokerSock who put on this lovely tournament, not to the silly woman at the front desk who literally ignored me halfway through a sentence to speak to someone on the phone because they're more important. Thank you very much to Sheffield PokerSock for running this tournament, for letting me record, and make sure you check out all of the rounds from this lovely tournament. Links will be in the description. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with round 3, and in round 3 we've got two players who are doing pretty darn well for themselves at the moment. On the left we have Dan Saunders playing Manectric Regice, and on the right we have we have Joe Everett, and he's going to be playing Fairies. So, yeah, now it's going to depend. Now, I haven't seen this game. I was playing at the time, so I don't know exactly what build of Fairies Joe is going to be playing. Going to have to hear me say. Now, you guys have got the names above you right here. I don't, so, bear with us just for a second. Now, Manectric Regice is just a plain good deck. Manectric has got really good attackers, and it's very, very efficient. Manectric hits 20 to the active, 20 to the bench for 1 energy, or 60 to the active for 2, 120 if they've got a tool attached. It's generally pretty good against most stuff. So, he goes off straight away, and he's playing a Trainer's Mail, and his Trainer's Mail looks to have got him a Lysandra, which is not ideal. It's really not, perfect, shall we say. It's not really what you're going to be relying on to kind of really, come out and... It's not a turn 1 supporter. Now, he does get a Rough Seas down, which is good, and he sycamores it straight away. Now, it might seem like an odd play, grabbing the Lysandra with the Trainer's Mail just to sycamore it, but remember, your average deck is playing 2 Lysandras and 4 VS Seeker, so it's actually not all that bad to have it in the discard pile, because he's more likely to draw into one of his 4 VS Seeker than drawing into one of his 4... he's more likely to draw into his VS Seeker than he is to draw into his Lysandra. So it does make a little bit of sense if he's going to be wanting to use it. Now we see a Fairy Energy coming down there on a Cottony. Cottony does 10 for 1 energy and puts your opponent to sleep. Only got 40 HP, which means if that Manectric gets a Muscle Band on next turn, there is going to be a... there's going to be a KO. Now, he has got the Fairy Energy on there, and he's got the Fairy Garden down. It's not a Fairy Energy, is it? It's the fancy Fairy Energy. Ooh, look at me, I'm fancy. It means it can't be affected by any special conditions, which unlikely to be a huge issue in this particular case, shall we say. Now, the Cottony has evolved. Quick quiz. Does anyone know what the Cottony actually evolves into? Oh, not that. Sorry, he's not evolving the Cottony. It's turn 1. He's putting down what I believe is a Diancie level X. Now, this is going to be a game which is very challenging to me because I'm watching it through for the very first time, and I'm going to have to work out what these cards are and what they do. That is a Diancie EX. Remember, it was only released as a promo card. Now, we see the Muscle Band, that's going to get a KO. Diancie EX only got 140 HP. Now, it can do Moonblast for a double colorless, which does 20 and reduces damage by 20 the following turn. Or for 3 energy, 2 fairy and a colorless, flip 2 coins, the attack does 40 damage for each heads, and it does 80 as a standard. So we see a Birch coming down there, we see a Manectric with a water energy. If Joe's deck is focused around that Diancie level X, then that means that he is really going to be trying to focus on, trying to get the Diancie level X out, EX, we're not in level X, that was a while ago, which means that this Regice will be able to do a little bit of damage. Otherwise, it's not really going to do very much at all. Cottony, quiz time's over, I'm afraid. It evolves into Whimsicott, which heals all damage counters from one Pokemon for 1 energy. 1 fairy energy, or does rolling tackle for a double colourless for 30. At least that is the X and Y Whimsicott. Excuse me, the Ancient Origins Whimsicott. So, we see straight away that Manectric has gotten rid of the Cottony. Now, that is the only Whimsicott which is legal at the moment. So, yeah. It's not looking particularly good for Joe here. Now, there is every possibility he pulls something out. We don't know exactly what he's playing, but he really is under the gun, so to speak. He's going to be, really backs to the wall. Now, I didn't tell you about Wonder Energy because it never became particularly relevant. It is called Wonder Energy, and like I said, what it does is it gets rid of it's not special condition, sorry, I was a little bit rude to you. It's actually any effective attacks except damage. Now, what that means is, well, it's an effect done to the fairy Pokemon. So, yeah. It's not, it's not great. Now, remember, the Regice does stop attacks from Pokemon EXs, but that's not an effect done to Diancie. It is an effect done to the Regice. The Regice gets immunity. It's not that the Diancie is underpowered. So, Joe's not going to be able to put a Wonder Energy on the Diancie and then attack the Regice. That's not going to work, unfortunately. As I've said, Wonder Energy, it prevents all effects of attacks done to the fairy Pokemon to which it's attached, and Regice, as we spoke about in the previous game, prevents all effects of attacks from the defending Pokemon. So it's giving Regice the immunity. The effect is on Regice. So we see an Ultra Ball coming down for the Shaman, just getting him a whole bunch of draw cards here. He's going to want a second energy. Now, we'll get there in a minute, but of course remember that there is a Mega Diancie EX. Such a thing does exist. So it may well be that the Mega Diancie is really where the deck's going, but of course the Regice would give immunity from... it would get immunity from the Mega Diancie as well as the regular Diancie. So, yeah, it's not going to help him all that much. And Joe's really on the back foot here. We look at Dan, he's got the Manectric with the energy and the muscle band. He's got the Regice with an energy on. He's got a second Manectric down. Now, he is going to want and I might have said it was a Spirit Link going on earlier, but it was a muscle band, as we saw. Now, he's playing a Birch here. I can't see if he hit a heads or a tails, but it must have been a tails because he only drew 4 cards. But he does get the second energy here, which means he's going to be doing 60. Joe playing it right. He hasn't put a tool on the Diancie. Remember that Diancie came out back when, and they're changing this now with the new Aerodactyl EX, a Mega Aerodactyl. But we're now at the stage where, we were at the stage where Pokemon was only giving Spirit Links to Pokemon that are only giving Spirit Links to Pokemon that came out in sets after a certain time, not the promos. Diancie and Mega Diancie came around in a promotional set, which means that there is no Spirit Link for Diancie. Now, Diancie reads, during your opponent's free 100 damage, free energy. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to each of your Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon EX. So, Joe here is playing the Mega Pokemon game, or the Immunity from EX game, in the same way that Dan is. Dan's going to be trying to use Regice, and Joe is going to be using Mega Diancie. They both take free energy. Difference is Regice can use double colourless. Regice doesn't need to be Mega Evolved. You don't lose a turn when you put Regice down. And, Mega Diancie's got 190 HP, which for a Mega EX is not all that great. Weirdly, both weak to metal. So, we saw a Steven come down there, which allows you to get a supporter and an energy. I believe that was a Steven. But, I suppose my problem here is, where's Joe going with this? What's Joe trying to do? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think, what can he do? How can he win here? He's not going to win by just manually attaching to the active Diancie. The active Diancie's already got 80 damage on, 20 from the first attack and then 60 from the other. Oh, and here comes a Rough Seas to heal off that Manectric. So, I mean, he needs to get a Mega Diancie out. Now, Mega Diancie, when people saw it, they thought, play it with Aromatisse. Aromatisse, of course, allows you to move all your fairy energy round, which means that you get to, I suppose, keep your fairy energy on you. You get to kind of, play around with your fairy energy for a little while. But, it had 60 on because the attack reduces any damage done the following turn by 20. I do apologise. So it's now up to 80 because it was on 60, and then we saw, no, I'm forgetting everything here. It's on 80 damage anyway. So yeah, it's not going well for Joe. That Mega Diancie isn't going to last very long. Now, we do see a Spritzy on the bench, so he is playing the Aromatisse build. If the Diancie can last for one more turn, and I don't like that they're using those damage counters, it looks like there's 80 on there. Although, to be honest, Manectric should just be doing 80 as it is. Because remember, Diancie is stopping 20 damage, but the Muscle Band is adding 20 damage. So those two should kind of, I suppose, balance themselves out over, as the turn goes. So we see a Sycamore coming here from Dan, and Dan is absolutely in the driver's seat. He's only taken one prize. But the big thing here is, what's Joe going to do? Now, what he needs to do is next turn, assuming the Diancie survives, he needs to get an Aromatisse out. Because if a Mega Manectric comes out from Dan here, say a Spirit Link and a Second Energy and a Mega on the bench, it's doable. I don't know if he's playing the Mega, we haven't seen it yet. But if the Mega Manectric comes out here, he can KO the Diancie and then it is all over. What Joe could do is try and get the he's used an Acrobat to get rid of the Lysandre. Getting rid of the Spritzy here. Playing the Lysandre to kill a Spritzy would be good, but remember, he has Sycamored. If Joe can get an Aromatisse and a Diancie next turn, move the energy onto the Diancie, but see, even then, next turn he gets a Diancie, it's then one more turn before he can evolve it, and then he has to end his turn by evolving it. So it's going to take him, one turn to put it down, one turn to evolve. It's going to be 3 turns before he can actually be attacking with it. And when he does, he's only hitting for 100. And yes, we do see the KO there. He was on, it might have been on 130 then. I might have misseen. Regardless, he dated. Now, the Whimsicott's got 90 HP, and there's 20 damage on it at the moment. There goes the Fairy Garden. But, of course, the Manectric is currently hitting for 80. So that Whimsicott's going down next turn. That Whimsicott ain't lasting, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and he doesn't have the Aromatisse. He doesn't have the Diancie. He doesn't have the Fairy Energy. Joe's got nothing. And this is going to turn into a very, very quick game. Now, I don't think we've seen a Spirit Link or a Mega Manectric here. So it may well be that Dan isn't playing the Mega Manectric. Although, to be honest, most people would in a deck like this because, generally you use a Mega Manectric. Remember, his attack does 110 and attaches 2 energy from the discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. Most people use the Mega Manectric to build up the Regice to block the attack from the EX attackers. So, if he gets that out here, it's, Oh, and there comes the AZ. He's picking up his Shaman. Probably going to put it back down to draw more cards. Sometimes people would use AZ to heal the Shaman, take the easy 2 prizes off their field, especially towards the end of the game. That's not what Dan is choosing to do, because he's in no danger of, not winning the game, or indeed even getting that Shaman KO'd. Swirlix comes down there. Swirlix evolves into Slurpuff. Which can either there's 2 of them. One gives you immunity from special conditions, although Wonder Energy does a very similar thing. Although Wonder Energy only does it from attacks, whereas Slurpuff does it generally. Or it can evolve into the one which allows you to draw an extra card per turn 2 if he's in the active. But essentially at this stage, it's the I believe it's the tasting one. Let me look that one. I'll have to go into the artwork. I'll give him his due here. Joe is really kind of giving us a run for our money in terms of trying to figure out what cards he's playing. Now, because this is just a Little League challenge and we're recording games as we went, we're not... I believe... Don't quote me on this. I believe it was the Phantom Forces Slurpuff with tasting. Hopefully, if it comes out again, we'll get to see. Doesn't really matter. He did. So, it's giving us all a bit of a workout. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, did you know what the Whimsicott did? I mean, I'd be interested to know how many of you knew that Cottony evolved into Whimsicott. I only know because I do the podcast and I try and keep up with every card that's out there. Before I did the podcast, there would sometimes be Pokemon I didn't quite know the evolution lines. Not so much. I played X and Y quite a lot, and I did complete Black and White, but, you don't get every Pokemon in those games. But now with the card game, I do keep up nice, and I keep up quite nicely. So what's Joe going to have to do to win this game? Honestly, I don't think there's much he can do. He seems... Now, maybe we didn't see part of his deck. Maybe there's a Florges EX in there that can start mounting some pressure. Or maybe a Mega Gardevoir. Because, honestly, both Florges EX and Mega Gardevoir are better than Diancie. Diancie's alright. Even the 100 damage isn't the end of the world. Against whole EX decks, it's alright. Here's the big problem. It's way too slow. Now, there are two things you can do. Firstly, the Aromatisse, and there's another, and I don't know if Joe's playing this. If he's not, he really should be. The Geomancy Xerneas. I believe we saw this with Paul Stringer in round 1 of this tournament. Allows you to get Fairy Energy on the field. Now, if you can get the Fairy Energy on with Geomancy, and then move it around with Aromatisse, you've still got the problem of having to wait a turn to evolve Diancie, and then end your turn in order to evolve it. Neither of these are ideal. It's not... It's just not looking good for Joe here. It doesn't seem like his deck can keep up. And the thing about Mega Manectric is, or Manectric in general, I'd say we didn't see the Mega. I'm sure that Dan does play it, but I could be wrong. The thing about Manectric is, it's really good at the early pressure. It kind of caps out at 110 damage, technically 140, I suppose, if you're using the non-Mega and your opponent's got a tool attached. But really, in everyday situations, if you're attacking with a regular, your opponent ain't going to put a tool down, so you're really stuck at 110 with the Mega. But you get going very, very fast. And against something like, I suppose Groudon and Rayquaza both have weakness, but decks like Groudon and Rayquaza, if the Rayquaza's got the Altaria out to turn off the weakness, they're just one-hit KOing so much easier than you are, because Manectric, you're 2-hit KOing, maybe 3-hit KOing a Mega, and it's... But against a lot of decks, Manectric is so good, in the same way that Lucario is very, very good, because it just gets going fast. And when you get a deck going that fast, there's very little sometimes your opponent can actually do about it. So, Joe's going to be going first in this game. And he's going to need something. He really is going to need something. Swirlix, not an ideal starter. He's going to need a Xerneas. Now, we get the Wonder Energy down there. Now that we've had a look, now the good news is... we took the first game getting to know the cards. Now we know the card's life is good. Now we see a Tierno coming down there for free cards. Now Joe's doing pretty good in this. I believe he's 2-0 entering this round. It looks like Joe's a bit of a newer player, so we're getting to get him a little bit of exposure, which makes me very happy. Oh, not good, not good. Now what is good is that Swirlix ain't going down this turn. Because... Manectric doesn't do enough damage. Manectric ain't doing more than 40, and that's really, really good. That's the XY Swirlix that has 60 damage. Or when he got the Spirit Link down, so he does play the Mega. And here, it would probably be a better idea to get the Muscle Band down, but of course it's what you've got in your hand at the time. If he got the Muscle Band down, he could hit the active Swirlix for 40, and then when it was on the bench, he could finish it off with the 20 residual damage from Overrun. Oh, not ideal there. He's having to get rid of a Shaman and another Sycamore using Sycamore. Might have been a Mustman in there as well, I don't know. But of course, there's a very good chance Joe's going to evolve into Slurpuff next turn anyway. So I suppose it's not the end of the world that he's, not not doing all that much damage. Remember that Manectric's first attack is for a colourless, so that will do quite nicely. While we're here, a bit of a side note, it's Slurpuff, not Slurpluff. It's a very common mistake as another Tierno comes down. I've been there as well. Oh, and we have a Gardevoir. Now, this looks more like it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it may have been. Now, it looks like Joe's doing a little bit of... Oh, we have an Evo Soda here for the Slurpuff. Right, now we're going to see which one it is. I'm going to pay special attention now. It is the X and Y Slurpuff. That one, at least, is an X and Y Slurpuff that's got the ability Sweet Veil, which means that you cannot be affected by special conditions. And it's got 90 HP, which ain't going to save it if Dan drops down a second energy here. Now, it may well be that, Joe has a much better deck than we kind of gave him credit for. He just didn't draw very well in the last round. Anyone know what that last card he played was? It was Palpad from Flashfire. Shuffle 2 supporter cards from your discard pile into your deck. Oh, and now he looks like he's going to be attacking with the Slurpuff, which is far from ideal. I would much rather see him attacking with the Gardevoir, but maybe he can't get the Slurpuff out of the active, because it's got a retreat cost of 2. Now, what it does is it does 30 damage and heals 30 from Slurpuff. So, what he actually did there was put him out of one-hit KO range, unless, of course, Dan has a Mega and an Electric Energy. He would need an Electric Energy at this stage, in which case he's doing 110 and knocking all of Joe's energy off the field. Now, if Joe can get the Gardevoir going here, this could be a more competitive game. Diancie, as we saw, it is just too slow. Oh, and once again, we see the Rough Seas come down, the Manectric get healed. That Rough Seas is so good in any water deck. It's just amazing because you can heal 30 damage every turn, and what more do you want? It heals all of your... It's just good. Now, Gardevoir EX has a similar kind of attack going to Slurpuff. For 1 energy, it can do 20 damage, and it can heal the amount of damage you do, i.e. stick a muscle band on. And there's another Steven going for a Shauna and an energy. So if you put a muscle band on the Gardevoir, it will do 40 and heal 40. Joe needs an energy here. The good news is, of course, he's just played a Steven. He's got an energy. He can attach that to the Gardevoir. Now, Gardevoir does 100 for free energy and takes away weakness. That is not particularly good. Mega Gardevoir, however, for free energy does 30 damage times a number of fairy energy, including wonder energy, attached to all of your Pokemon. Hence, you get the Aromatisse, move the energy around, keep the energy out. Mega Gardevoir starts smashing. And it's got 210 HP. And it has a Spirit Link. We don't know if Joe's playing it, but there is a Spirit Link available. Spirit Link exists for this deck, shall we say. But we really are at the stage now where, Joe's one game down. We're 20-25 minutes into the game. But if he wants anything more than the draw, he needs to start putting some pressure on. Now, we have not seen a very good start from Dan here. He's got free Manectric. One of them has we see a Jigglypuff coming down with a Wonder Energy. That is not a card we see very often. So if nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, this is not, it might not be the most competitive game. It looks like the Manectric is going to run away with this. But we're getting to see cards we don't usually see on stream, and this makes me happy. Now, that's a Jigglypuff from X and Y, which, doesn't really tell us very much. Oh, and the Fairy Garden comes down to get rid of the Rough Seas. Because there were 2 Jigglypuff in X and Y. This is the one that has Rollout for a colourless that does 10 damage, and Heartfelt Song for a fairy, which has the weirdly specific effect of discarding a dark energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. I saw my good friend Kelly at a pre-release get beaten with this card by somebody who just sat there, just discarding her dark energy turn after turn after turn. It was wonderful, because she was playing a dark deck with, all the dark Pokemon from X and Y. So what we see here is Dan, he still hasn't got very much, and he's got 1 energy on the field and 3 Manectric down and, no muscle band and all of that good stuff. But it doesn't really matter because he's spreading damage around nicely. He's now up to 60 damage on the benched Gardevoir, which means by the time that Gardevoir comes active, it's going to be smashed. And let's not forget that although the Gardevoir does have a Spirit Link, as soon as you put a Spirit Link on the Gardevoir, regular Manectric can then do 120 for 2 energy. However, and we see Ruffles is back out. If Joe can get a Fairy Garden and an energy next turn, he can free retreat the Slurpuff and then, do 100 damage. Start getting going here. And if he can ever get a Mega out, if he can get the Mega out, and especially the Aromatisse, then he's got 6 energy on the field. He could start really doing some damage here, but he needs the Aromatisse. Actually, he doesn't even need the Aromatisse, to be honest. If he, and it's a lot to ask for, but if next turn we see he's got the energy, if as well as the energy he's got a Spirit Link, Mega Gardevoir, Fairy Garden, then things are getting real next turn. He can retreat the Slurpuff. He'll then have 7 energy on the field, meaning he's doing 210 damage, and he'll get the 1-hit KO on the Manectric. But if he has to manually retreat, it'll only be 4 energy down, which is 120, which isn't enough. And here comes Wigglytuff, which, of course, I suppose brings us to the next round of the quiz, as Dan's reading it. What does Wigglytuff from X and Y actually do? Well, there were 2 Wigglytuff from X and Y. And that one's got 100. It's got 100 HP. I suppose we'd call it a kind of sad and happy Wigglytuff. He's playing a happy Wigglytuff. Now, happy Wigglytuff for 1 energy allows you to search your deck for a basic energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. Or for 3 energy, you can do 60 damage, and the defending Pokemon can't attack during your opponent's next turn, which is much better against a lot of decks than it is against Dan's deck. Because all Dan needs to do is... not sure how happy I am about bringing it up this turn, because if the Mega comes out, he's doing 110 damage to that. But because the Manectric's got a single, he's got a retreat cost of 1. But if he, for instance, was able to get the Wigglytuff up this turn, then Dan would have to retreat it manually. And then if he had another energy, he'd be stuck doing 20, 20, 20, 20 all the time, which is kind of cool. Here's a downside. Gardevoir EX has 170 HP. Now, the good news is, so does Manectric. So if that Gardevoir's alive next turn, he's getting the KO. Oh, here's the Mega. He ain't getting a KO on that. And with just a single energy, and it'll have to be an electric, he'll be doing 110 damage, which will put the Gardevoir up to 170. Oh, but he doesn't have it. But here we're going to start seeing the power of Rough Seas. All he's got is a double colourless, so he sticks up the Manectric with the muscle band and the double colourless. And now he gets to heal 30 damage from that Manectric every turn until it's got no damage on, while he puts the Gardevoir up to 100 damage and does 20 to one of the benched. And if he finds an electric energy next turn, he'll be able to do a base damage of 80, which will be enough to take down that Gardevoir and pretty much all of Joe's remaining energy, at which stage it's going to be pretty much as good as over, which is a little bit sad. Now, we do see the energy from the Wigglytuff, but that really is less of an issue at this stage. If the Wigglytuff comes up, it'll do 60 damage. The active Manectric won't be able to attack, but the Manectric's got an energy on, it can manually retreat, and then we've got the Mega on the bench. It's weird that we've seen no electric energy from Dan, because his deck has drawn that badly. But if as soon as he draws an electric energy, it is on, ladies and gentlemen. It is, oh, and he's got the VS Seeker, which means he can search for the Sycamore, which means he gets to discard his hand and draw a new hand of 7 cards, as we see a Sacred Ash come down. I believe it's just 1 Shaman he got back there. So, well, hang on a second. He's been drawing dead. Why does he want to play why does he want to put cards in before he plays a Sycamore, well, because if he draws that Shaman, that is not going to be the end of the world. That Shaman will get him more cards. So, if anything, he actively wants to draw into the Shaman. There comes... did he get rid of a Muscle Band there? Because he's got a Manectric on the bench that doesn't have a Muscle Band on. It seems weird that he wouldn't put it on there. I know putting the Muscle Band on means you can't put a Spirit Link on, but he's already got one down. Speaking of which, he hasn't used that Rough Seas yet. Okay, he clearly wants... Okay, no... I mean, that worked out quite nicely. He hasn't used Rough Seas yet. Don't forget Rough... Oh, and there's the Electric Energy, which I wouldn't put on the benched one. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Yeah, okay, this is fair enough. Because he's getting the KO, and he has used Rough Seas. And yeah, no, maybe that was the best play. And he gets to get the... if he's got any energy in discard, he gets to get it back. He could have got the KO with the active Manectric, but I suppose putting the Mega up doesn't really make a huge difference, to be honest with you. And actually, it's got more HP, so it's going to last a little bit longer. Anyway, so Gardevoir goes down, and this game has the feeling of an inevitability about it. Wigglytuff can come up now, because he had now, if this could get interesting if Joe's got an energy, because, quite frankly, there's no other energy on the board. When Dan used Mega Manectric's attack, there were no energy in the discard to use. Oh, and here comes a Pokemon Center Lady to heal the Slurpuff. Now, if Joe's got an energy here, he can attack with a Wigglytuff, he can do 60 damage, and he can stop the Mega Manectric attacking next turn, which means the only possible attack that could be done by Dan would be if he got one energy and used Overrun on the benched Manectric. Remember, Mega Manectric's got a free retreat. Does he have an energy? He needs to put it on the... Oh, that's just a mistake, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. That's not good. That's not good. At this stage, Joe has very, very little. The best he can really hope for here... Oh, no, sorry, I'm being a complete idiot. He was using Wigglytuff's first attack, which got an energy and attached to the bench. I was going to say, there's no way he would, not attack. My apologies, I didn't see that he was using the attack. So he's used the attack to put an energy on Diancie, which of course is a good play. It is a clever thing to do. But now we see an energy on the bench Manectric, and we see 30 damage coming off of each Manectric. Now we get a VS Seeker for, I believe, a Sycamore, which even puts energy in the discard pile. So now he's going to be able to KO the Wigglytuff, go down to 3 prizes, and put 2 energy on the other Mega Manectric while he's at it. And this is one of the beautiful things about these Mega Manectric decks. Do 110 damage. Build up your benched Mega Manectric, retreat, wait till Rough Seas heals you. Every time you're in any danger of being KO'd, you just retreat and let yourself heal with Rough Seas, and while you're in the process, you're constantly attaching energy while you're attacking with Mega Manectric. And I think at this stage, Joe had that one turn. Had he had a third energy there, if he'd had an energy to put on the Wigglytuff, now don't get me wrong, that the Mega Manectric had free retreat, and the bench Manectric had a Muscle Band and an energy, so he would have been able to do 40 and 20 to the bench, and then the following turn he would have been able to manually retreat the Manectric, paying the retreat cost of 1, put the Mega Manectric back up and kill the Wigglytuff. So, you really start to think, what can he do here? Now, getting the immunity from EXs with Mega Gardevoir would be sweet, but there ain't no Gardevoir down. He needs free energy. We need Xerneas in this deck. He needs Xerneas, he needs Aromatisse. If you go back to round 1, and if you haven't watched rounds 1 and 2, I of course heartily recommend that you do so. But, back there we saw Paul's deck, and we saw the Xerneas, we saw the Aromatisse. We saw that you can get the energy out, you can move the energy around, and life becomes good. Now, we do see an attack from Diancie here. It's really not... It's not going to make a huge difference. Now, I don't believe that we're going to see an attack for Yeah. Now, what Dan could do here, it's a very, very small point. He'd be better off with the Regice here, because the Regice would do 70, which is still enough to half KO it, while giving it immunity from EXs the following turn. He clearly doesn't need to. That Diancie's now down to 30 HP. And we see a Cottony coming down with a Wally to straight evolve it into a Whimsicott. It's not going to do much good, if I'm honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to have any real effect on this game. It's not going to affect the outcome. Because, like I say, I mean, at this stage, there's nothing Joe can do. The game is basically over. Although, actually, weirdly, without the muscle band, Regice wouldn't have been a great play, because remember that Diancie's Moonblast reduces damage done by 20, so the Regice actually couldn't 2-hit KO. And, of course, the 20 damage done gets healed off with Rough Seas anyway. So, we had some good discussion, we looked at some unusual cards, but I don't think the result of that game was ever really in doubt. Thank you very much to those chaps for letting us record it, and to PokeSock Sheffield. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment if there's anything you want to say. I'll be back with a final round very shortly. Until then, thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.